My Voice provides those with lived experience in homelessness, addiction, mental and behavioral health struggles, and domestic violence with a platform to tell their story in their words. Every episode is conducted anonymously in order to facilitate a candid and comfortable place for guests to tell their story. My Voice is hosted by Bryan Fields, who works as a case manager here at the My House Youth Drop-In Center in Wasilla, Alaska. We now join a My Voice conversation, already in progress.
Are you a summer, winter, or fall person?
Sorry, this is so funny to me. I didn't expect you to ask a question like that, like just like a random off-the-wall question.
Yeah, that's how we do it, dude.
Okay. I guess I am a summer person, but I'm also very much a fall person.
Okay.
I hate the winter, and we don't have spring. We have mud.
Yes.
So
you live in Alaska and you hate the winter.
I do hate the winter. I'm here because I haven't had the funds to move yet.
Oh.
And I was moved here as a child. So.
I myself am a fall person. Like, I just love the colors. I love the weather. You can get like a little bit of sunshine, but also like that cool brisk. When it gets like late fall though, and it starts smelling like death, I'm not a fan of that. But the beginning of fall to me is like the best time of year. I just love it so much.
Definitely agree with that. So the smell of death is actually like one of my favorite smells.
Oh my gosh.
It reminds me of when I used to walk all the time when I was in high school. I would take walks like in the woods and I would go see cool stuff, and it smelled like death. So, you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, to each their own, I guess. Welcome back. For anybody just listening to My Voice for the first time, this is one of our very first update videos. So this guest was on season 1, episode 10, where they shared their story. And now we're going to kind of go through that stuff, but also do a little recap for any first-time listeners. If you would like to go back and hear the full story, you can go back to season 1, episode 10 to hear this guest story. So without further ado, let's get into it. Where are you from?
So I was originally born in Anchorage, and then I moved around a little bit as a kid. My stepdad was in the military, and so we hopped from Alaska to California, and then we went to Texas. I was in Texas till I was about 11, and then I moved back up here, and I've been here since.
Okay, so you've been here since 11. Did you like down south compared to here?
I like other parts of the South. I'm not a fan of Texas.
Not a fan of Texas?
It's flat, dry, and southern, so.
And hot.
Yes,
it's
dry.
A dry heat.
Well, we have dry cold here, yeah. So you know.
You always hear people say that, like, it's just a dry heat, ain't that bad.
Literally. What I do miss is the thunderstorms.
Really?
Gorgeous thunderstorms. Like the entire sky would be like green or purple with the lightning and like the thunder. It was so cool. I miss those.
So we moved up here to 11. We moved up here at 11. What was it like when you moved up here? What was your childhood okay up into that point? You're moving around a lot. Why are you moving around? Are you?
Yeah, so we were moving because, again, my stepdad was in the military. He was a staff sergeant in the Army. When we lived in California, he was recruiting, and then we moved to Fort Hood in Texas. And it was actually, so when we moved in with my stepdad, he was already living in California. When I was 2, my bio mom and my bio dad had a really, really rocky relationship. There was a lot of substance abuse and domestic violence, so they ended up splitting up. My mom took me and my older brother to go live with my stepdad, and, we were there. This was before they were married. They got married shortly after we moved down there. So when he got stationed on Fort Hood, that's when we moved. And then we moved from base to off base when we were there because my mom popped out a bunch of kids, so we needed more space. So, that was the thing. But, the domestic violence and substance abuse didn't really stop when my mom and my bio dad broke up. It continued just in different ways. And then, my stepdad did 2 deployments when we were living in Texas. He went to Afghanistan and Iraq for both pretty lengthy periods of time. My mom had 4 kids in that time period as well. So there was just a lot of stress. My mom just did not have the support system or the mental health or sobriety to be able to take care of us the way that she needed to. So it was pretty rocky overall. It was rough.
Yeah, that sounds pretty rough. And I mean, just having dad be deployed, I can imagine as a child how scary that must be. Okay. And so they split up, and then is that when you moved to Alaska was when they split up, or did they split up in Alaska?
So my biological dad and my bio mom, they split up when we lived in Alaska. They were separated, and then they weren't. And then that second time that they weren't, the domestic violence increased. And from what I've been told, because I was really little, I was 2 years old when this happened, we moved down to California. My stepdad got a call from my mom, and they had all gone to high school together. So, they were aware of each other and they were friends, I guess. But so my stepdad came up from California, put me, my brother, and my mom on a plane, packed our stuff, and then he drove down with our stuff from Anchorage to California. And then my stepdad and my mom, they ended up being married for 11 years, and they got divorced 9 years, 11 years, something like that. Sorry, timelines suck in my brain.
That's okay.
But they were married for quite some time, but they got divorced when we moved back up to Alaska. Like I was talking about with that support system, my mom just didn't have it. And then on top of that, from the time that my parents got divorced, biological parents, my mom was not, basically wouldn't allow my dad to see me or my brother, his 2 kids, for anything.
Okay.
She kind of kept that, like I didn't have contact with my dad until it was 5, when it was court ordered that we were to go see him for 2 weeks when we first moved to Texas. And then I wouldn't hear from him again until shortly before my 11th birthday. And that's when he finally started the custody battle over again. And that's ultimately what led to us moving back to Alaska, was because there's all the court stuff. My stepdad just happened to be at the point where he was trying to renew his contract, but it was like that time period, so he just chose not to. We packed all of our stuff up, and we moved from Texas back up to here, kids in tow. We had 6 of us kids, plus my parents in 2 vehicles, driving up from the lower 48. And that was crazy. It took us a month to get up there because we got into a car wreck in New Mexico. And then we were dealing with insurance and stuff, and we lived in a hotel for a month. That was great. Back up here, my stepdad and my mom, their marriage had already been super rocky, and then they just got divorced after that because my mom left state and left all the kids and everything. So he was done.
Okay. So it sounds like all through growing up, there's not a lot of stability, sounds like quite a bit of chaos and dysfunction. So naturally, I think that probably results in some chaos and dysfunction outwardly from you, I'm assuming, right?
Oh, absolutely. So once my mom left, me and my older brother moved in with my biological dad. He got sole custody of us. It went well for the first little bit. And then, I started having a lot of behavioral problems. I didn't know how to deal with, my mom leaving and my entire life kind of just completely changing. Because the one consistent thing that I had was I had my brother, I had my mom, and I had, eventually my siblings. They were always the consistent. At the end of the day, my stepdad, when he would come home, that's when life would get better. When he'd come home from his deployments, it'd be super rocky when he was gone, but, it got easier. Entire situation just changed, and I'm living with this guy who is my dad, but is a stranger to me. I did not grow up knowing him. I knew of him. I knew his name, but he didn't know me. I didn't know him, so that was unsafe. And then this lady who was apparently going to be my new stepmom, and I had hardly had conversation with her, didn't know her either. It was just a really scary time. And, so the way that I dealt with that was I just started middle school, and I had learned about self-harming, and that became one of my first addictive tendencies. And then that later turned into, I started smoking cigarettes because my mom used to smoke 2 packs a day. So I wanted to have my mom around, and it was just an influence thing around me. And then just behaviors just continually got worse.
Yeah.
And by the time that I was 17, I had been pretty addicted to alcohol, and I would do anything I could to get my hands on whatever kind of drug would make me numb out. And I would avoid my problems at all costs.
Yeah.
I just never wanted to deal with anything. And I was in therapy, but I wasn't honest. I wasn't able to open up about a lot of what was going on at home, which was significant more chaos.
Yeah.
I'm at the point now where if you want to learn about that, go to the last episode.
Yeah, for sure.
Because, it's not my story. It is my story, but I've moved on past it. And I have to remember that the other people involved in that were also children. And it's not fair for me to character assassinate anyone. So
yeah. Well, look at that. That right there is a prime example of why we're doing an update video, or a podcast, I've just seen so much growth in you over this last year, and I'm super excited to get into more of that stuff. So yeah, we had a lot of dysfunction. I think in your last episode, you touched on coming into my house, not doing too hot, right?
So when I first came into my house, I was 21 years old. I had just turned 21 years old, and I was already just my addiction had taken me so far. I was homeless. Well, because after COVID hit, so 21 would have been year 21 for me, 2021. When COVID hit, I had moved in with my stepdad and his wife, who has become a mother figure to me since they got together. They actually, it's a weird love triangle thing, but that's a later story. She's a really great lady, and she's been a huge part of my life. Anyway, they took me in because I had drank myself out of my apartment. I decided I needed a geographical change. I couldn't afford my bills, and all I wanted to do was drink, smoke, and just numb out. I was losing weight like crazy. My hair was falling out. I was super unhealthy. I just couldn't function. So when COVID hit, I saw an excuse. I had an aunt who offered to buy me a plane ticket to go stay with her. Little did I realize how much she would see through my things because she's a substance abuse counselor. Oof. And I was like, oh, yeah, I can stop drinking. I just need to get away from here. Like, it'd be fine. And I genuinely believed that. I really did. And that's the crazy part. Like, I just didn't understand what addiction was doing to me and, like, where my mind really was and the power that it had over me.
Yeah.
That first week there, I started experiencing withdrawals, and I had never experienced that before. I had the shakes, I had the sweats, I had all of the things because I went complete cold turkey. Moving into her house, I wasn't allowed to drink, I wasn't allowed to smoke, I wasn't allowed to vape. I vaped in my room at night when she wasn't around, which is amends I'll be making later in my life. However, I'd never had that. And within a week, I found alcohol. Like within a week, I found a buddy that I went to North Star with when I was 14 years old for substance abuse and she came and picked me up and we drove 2 hours back to her where she was staying, which was not the greatest part of Washington.
Right.
I ended up in the hospital the next day.
Wow.
Because I just went as hard as I used to. And even the week without it in my system, I couldn't handle it. And that day I was on a flight back to Alaska.
Yeah.
I think they were like, you need to go to treatment. And I was like, I don't want to go to treatment. What's treatment?
Yeah.
And then I moved in with my parents. And then that was a year of my trying their hardest, my stepdad and the person I call my mom, to manage and control my drinking for me because I was unwilling. If I had my way, I would have been drunk every single day. I would have been smoking every single day. And we got it down to smoking a dab pen at night. And that in itself was a fight.
Oh, my goodness.
Because I was like, you're just trying to control me. And
good intentions. Yeah.
Like now I can see that they did that out of love. Now I can see that they just wanted what was best for me. And I was so blinded to all of that. And
it's hard to, the book talks about it's hard to see the forest through the trees, right? And
Absolutely.
When we're buried in self-pity and self-loathing and selfishness and all of the things that we immerse ourselves in when we're in addiction, it's so hard to see anything even rational. It doesn't even make sense. I remember all kinds of different stories where, I'd be like, oh, I don't have a problem. I just need to stop drinking whiskey. Like, how does that make sense in your brain, type of deal.
Switch from scotch to brandy.
Yeah.
Brandy,
yeah.
Literally.
Yeah.
So long story short with that, I had gone through quite a bit mentally. My addiction was taking a toll on my mental health quite a lot. I became incredibly suicidal. I also figured out that it was a way for me to get attention and to get drugs, and I started to drug seek. And so I ended up in the mental hospital, I think 3 times before I got into my house. And by the time that I had gotten in contact with my house, my parents were done. They couldn't do it anymore. My mom had emotionally cut herself off from me. My stepdad refused to even talk to me just because they didn't know what to do, and everything they did, it was like I would just spit it right back in their face. Mm-hmm. So I was on the verge of being homeless.
Can I just speak on that really fast?
Yeah, absolutely.
For any parent listening, I know that it is very hard to have that tough love, but I think you would agree
absolutely
that
it's
it's absolutely necessary, right? And one of my best friends has like this saying where it's like, I would rather step on your feelings than step on your grave. And I hold that in my heart. And a lot of the decisions that I make, especially being a case manager here at my house, because I have to make those decisions, right? But it's so important to hold space and to hold those boundaries and to say, you know what? I am not going to participate in your death, right? And that's what, you know, you need to remind yourself. If you are a parent and you have somebody struggling with substance use, do not participate in their death, because that's the way it ends every time. I've lost so many friends, so many family members to substance abuse. It always ends the same way, either jails, institutions, or death, right? So, absolutely. Sorry, I just wanted to speak to that.
Incredibly important. You know, my parents, you know, I even read the other day, like this little post on Facebook that it was like, if you coddle a person in addiction, you're enabling their death. Like, it's literally what it is.
Yeah, 1,000%.
And unfortunately, like, it's so hard when you have the person who's struggling, trying to manipulate and control and manage, because that's what we do.
Yeah.
But the reality is, like, you have to cut the cord.
Yeah.
It's so important. And I'm really glad that you touched on that, because that also ties into my house, because my house is how I finally learned tough love. Because I was not ready for any cord to be cut. Right. What are you talking about?
Yeah, exactly. The forest through the trees, right? Like,
literally.
Can't see it, but okay. So parents had enough. We're in my house. If you listen to the last episode, we all know that does not go well.
It does not.
Because you were not
terrible.
You were not ready, right?
No, I was completely unwilling to admit to myself that I couldn't drink anymore. I was unwilling to admit to you guys that, you know, I wasn't ready. You know, I just wanted to tell you what you guys wanted to hear. And, you know, that led me to getting put into North Star. And that's where I came into contact with you. But, you know, that was the beginning of me kind of starting to figure out what was going on. However, the rehab that I went to was really cushy and very nice. So it took that tough love away a little bit. I was like, wow, this place is nice. I want to figure out how to stay here.
Yeah. Got a movie theater.
Literally. Air hockey downstairs, 3 different freaking floors.
Yeah, I think so. The idea, though, behind that, I think, is really about making you feel of value and valuing your program.
Yeah, I can see that now. But for me, like, it was like, wow, like, I made it. But,
right? Why would I want to leave here? Exactly. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay.
Which is just, it is what it is. But, you know, obviously they saw through my stuff.
Yeah, weird.
And I was...
It's so weird. I don't know. How could they see that?
I'm so good at it.
I know, right?
I'm on the beam.
Yeah, for sure. 1,000%.
Anyway, I was asked to leave, but I was given the opportunity to come back, which was honestly more than I deserved at that point in time, but it gave me hope. And then I did stay sober for those 30 days. And I came back, and within a week, I was out, because I guess I wasn't willing enough.
Yeah.
And there was other circumstances to that as well. My mental health had taken yet another turn. Fell back on old addictive behaviors because I didn't have a solution. I wasn't really working a program of recovery. I wasn't actually doing the things I needed to do for myself. I wasn't spiritually fit. Like, I was just white knuckling everything. And like, for those who are listening, white knuckling basically means that your mind is riddled with the same thoughts that you have when you're in your addiction, but you have no substances to make it go away.
Right. Substances are not, that was the thing that smacked me in the face. Like, substances are not my issue.
Yeah.
Right. My thinking and my behavior is my issues, and substances are just a symptom of that.
Yeah. Absolutely.
That was such a huge eye opener. I was like, what do you mean I'm the problem? That don't make no sense.
How dare you tell me that?
Everybody else is the problem. Literally. I am the victim here. What are you talking about? Woe's me. Hello.
Let me sit on my pity pot. It's comfy here.
Yeah.
No, I totally get that. That was a really big eye opener for me later when I actually understood what they were saying. Because people used to talk at me a lot, but I wouldn't hear the things that they were saying.
Right.
But, you know, so I fell back on old addictive behaviors, and that in turn was at the treatment center I was at. They could not insurance-wise handle it. It just was not something that they could help me with. So they took me to the place that could help me, and they led me in that direction. And immediately said no to their help, and I fell back into, I was couch hopping again. I knew my house was here, and I was so scared to even walk in this building because of my own fears,
This is after you graduated?
This is after I was asked to leave Vita the second time.
Okay.
So now we're leading into coming into this next year, and then this is where I'm going to get into, being at True North again in their outpatient program. I had yet to succeed to an outpatient program at this point.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of My Voice. For local services here at my house, please call 373-4357. That's 373-HELP.